So last week we stopped on this one. Update Content-Article.liquid. Is that a branch? What is the branch? No branch, no tag. What is that? And I think it's the layout branch. So just fixing a test, I assume. Nothing interesting. Working on getting rid of manifest files. So this is the same branch as last week. That removes manifest files. This is an old, it has changed since then, but the idea is that, well, let me open the PR. It will be easier. There used to be some screenshots, maybe on the issue. Yes, on the issue. So this is what it looks like so far. So no more manifest or modulo.txt or themes.txt, just a file in your project that will have assembly attributes like module. So one to define if the assembly is a module or a theme, then the different features, okay, as different things. And this way we get IntelliSense and no more static files. It's compiled, so we can't make mistakes on indentation or name of properties and everything. So that's good. That should be also maybe faster to detect modules than having to browse for manifest files, and yeah, less thing also to deploy as files. We don't have to copy since we were embedding the files, we don't have to copy them also in publish, but it's even better now. So it should be faster at least. And compile time safe. Okay. And the last question was about, should it be a constructor or should it be just properties which do new module or something? We have to see. Or maybe the attributes handle the properties. There is some comments going on the PR. We'll see. So this is about it. Kevin, on the same branch, what is this branch? What is this branch? Dev.
JT's got lots of open
yeah,
branches. Wow. Does he sleep?
Should finish things first. It doesn't. No. We made it official last week. He doesn't sleep anymore.
Okay.
That's good. Remove Dependencies.AspNetContrib.props from OrchardCore. I'm not sure if it's a merged thing or if it's a specific branch. So removing this file, which is not used, liquid syntax error displayed on every request. Maybe they are merged per request. 5 days ago, yeah, probably we merged them on Thursday, but they don't appear as is. So this one, liquid template, decreasing the display on every request. Yes, this is to fix the fact now that if you have an error in your liquid template, it will be displayed and not display a blank page in some cases. So you will see the error every time and they won't be cached. This is updating, fixing some issues with OpenID request, and by the way, updating SQL version. Not on this one. Adding this one is just to update a constraint on a specific index. Move the authentication middleware to a new OrchardAuthentication module. So a new module that does only use authentication, because it should be called a new once. So it's a module now. Query liquid filter and opacity object value as opposed to FluidValue from quiz, fixing the fact that the parameters in a query have to be objects and not fluid values. So when you call a query from a liquid template, then they will be converted correctly. Fixing feature parsing issue. This is Sipke fixing. Yeah. we found an issue, I think, or yeah, we found an issue, Nick. The way the tenants.json is taken into account is wrong. It's using configuration. It should not be converted into a configuration. It should be read as is. And the way it's converted into configuration makes this thing weird. Like you have to read features 1, features 2, feature 3. So that's weird. The issue is explicit about what it should do.
Yeah, I've seen it before. I really don't like the implementation. I wrote it, so.
Localizer factories, apparently new names have changed, so we need to update the factories for the localization files. Rename modules content folder to the root. This is a huge change which breaks every module. So every static file now, every static asset has to be in a the root folder in a module and not a content folder. This is a standard in ASP.NET MVC, so we are following the same convention for a module as for an app. Working on background tasks, so fixing an issue with background task. To prevent locks on database apparently, but as I mentioned last week, we will change the way it works, or 2 weeks ago. Tag helper for image resizing, so we merge a Keith branch. This is a set of tag helper and eraser extension, 2 example in the README, to render resize URLs for the images. So this img tag, the src can be anything you want, like a path of media field, and then if you do img width and img height, it will generate a correct URL. And you can either do src or, oh, it's not documented, yes, asset-src, and pass directly the value of the field, and it will be converted to the absolute URL or relative URL of the media in this. I assume it should be absolute URL because we need the CDN configuration too. But it will convert, it will call into the service that will convert the local path to a public path. Okay. That's it. Then all these branches from Jean-Thierry, isolated scope for background tasks, so that we don't have to call into HTTP accessor in background task. We'll get an HTTP context, but this one is apparently to provide a new HTTP context. Let's see how it works. I haven't looked at it. Default HTTP context. So it's providing a custom HTTP context for background task. We'll see. I said we will create a different PR for that, so he created already the branch. The idea being that we need to create a custom fake HTTP context for background tasks because there is no existing request, so we need to make one up. First login, this is a way to, this is an update on the existing fix, which is inverting the position in HTML of the email and the username, so that when you go on the next screen, Chrome would autocomplete the username. And then a bootstrap set of classes, so that even though in HTML they look right to left, we put the username on the left and the email on the right. I'm going to try that. Circular depth, so an update on the circular dependency, removing a comment which was not supposed to be there based on PR feedback. Review alternate collections, yeah, the new feature to be able to change the layout of a liquid template or razor page from inside the view. Here using a custom razor page interface, so that we don't need to use reflection to modify the alternate of the layout. This is where that we, oh yeah, because we have 2 different classes. And now alternate collection as an insert. Okay, so we don't have to copy the collection to add something in the alternate collection. But now that I see that, I wonder if no, didn't I create this collection to make it immutable? Maybe not. No, because there is a add range. It was just missing an insert. Page folder add a default route based on the module name is specified, update to an existing branch to more comments. That's good. Comments in code to understand what it does. So the idea being that we need to be able to define a base prefix for all the Razor pages in a specific module. By default there is one, and then you can customize the prefix if you want. I should be changed based on some comments to be able to use the prefix as dd as the name of the feature and not just the ID. Not yet, I think.
Show me the startup class.
This is sample.
Oh, okay, cool. Interesting.
So you define a default, like all your pages will be there. And you can define the home page for this page. Good?
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Merge dev into manifest, work in progress for the manifest files. So modifying all the existing manifest file to create them into code. Manifest.cs, we'll see. Zipke on workflows, and I assume this should be almost done.
It's done, but waiting for feedback on the code, and maybe there's some more work to be done based on that feedback.
Perfect. What is this being HTTP? That's weird.
Yeah, that should be Pascal case, not.
Okay, this is a demo. Okay, this is a folder. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I look at it. ID generation. So Zipke wants to move the ID generation into a more usable location than content generation, because we have content item ID generation which implements that, but we should be able to generate an ID also without having to reference content management, because you want to use that in workflows, I assume.
Exactly. And I wasn't sure what the correct location should be, so I created a new package that's very specific.
Okay.
But yeah, if we have more of those kind of more, I don't know, utility-like things, maybe at the same time, I don't want to have one big utility library per se, but it can grow over time, I suppose.
Okay, use an API from the Margin Dev, from Nick. This we put some IntelliSense comments in a branch named manifest. Okay, so manifest thing. Okay, that's weird. Why is he renaming that? Oh, maybe that's weird. Bad copy paste or? Probably bad copy paste. Features module, the media module. Unit test, MS build target, view components, update on an existing PR for view components, localization project, fixing some projects on a patch 1 branch. Okay, let's see what he comes with. Manifest, update, and that's it. So this is a week from Jean-Thierry.
So I did just a little bit of work around something called OpenAPI, which is basically Swagger renamed to OpenAPI. what I wanted to try and do is do a little bit more documentation on our API side of things. So by plugging this in, it kind of gave me a bit more documentation. And I also wanted to use the API Explorer that comes with MVC. So this is my initial first sketch of an API, of OpenAPI. Ignore the URL. That doesn't really mean anything right now. What it kind of gives you is it gives you a list of the paths, tokenized paths, a list of responses, and a list of descriptions. How do I get rid of this? Actually, it doesn't matter. So if I type in OpenAPI, for example, and have a look at the output, oh, it doesn't say. Darn. Well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so I've got a single API within the contents module, and I've got it decorated to say that this method will produce a 200. One of the things that I'm finding with this API Explorer stuff is that it's not very well finished. So let me try and show you how it's decorated, so how to pump one out. So I have an API controller, pretty standard. All you need to do to get your API within, it's an opt-in model, so to get your API into this pass list, you specify an API Explorer settings. So this is the API Explorer settings that come with the ASP MVC core stuff, which is kind of nice. What I wanted to do was not really change much code, really. I wanted to just use attributes to define what things were. So in this instance, I've specified that. That's then said, okay, cool, I've got all these actions on my AM API. So I've got get by ID, get by version, and you can see that here. Content item ID, content item version ID. So there's a few more pieces of information that can come into here. And you can see that I've done produces response type a 200 and also is a HTTP get. So I've got a get with a response type of 200. You know, you would have the same if it was a post. Post would come into here, patch, etc. And the module will just discover that stuff. So the way this happens is when I hit enter, this comes into Orchard. It hits a piece of middleware. Similar to the way I did GraphQL. Okay. So you hit enter, and it comes in and hits the OpenAPI middleware. The middleware will say, okay, cool, is this an OpenAPI request? At the moment, that's all it's doing is it's checking the URL, which is fine, and it's only going to be a GET request because you're only asking for information. This isn't about creating stuff, it's not about patching stuff, it's just about providing information to the user about what the API does. You then make requests against the information that's returned to you. So that will come into here. It will then execute async, so it will go and get this thing called an IAPI descriptor group collector provider. It will then build up a document, an OpenAPI document, and it will return that document. So it will write that document to the request and return. Now, what it's doing under the hood. So I've created this document and I've said, okay, I'm going to write this to the pipeline, but I haven't actually hit any actions at the moment. So in theory, no output formatters will be called because I don't want to go and say, well, I want to write JSON or YAML or whatever. I want that to be based on my content type that I pass in. So if I come back here and you can see that I've got this, I can change this to be YAML. I haven't tried this out yet, so if it goes completely wrong, yeah, so that doesn't quite work the way I expect it to, but that might just be because I've got something specified wrong. Okay, so I go to write this model async. What that will do is that will execute that will execute the MVC output formatters using an extension method. So I've got an extension method here to execute, to kind of create a fake action. That will then call into the output formatters. The output formatters are actually kind of cool. So you just specify the type that you want to for your output formatter to use. So application JSON and text.json. Those are the two that are supported by this output formatter. And can I write that document? So in this instance, I only want to use this output formatter to write an OpenAPI document. I don't want it to be used for any other output. Same goes for the YAML output formatter. So that will then execute this method here, write response body async, which will use the OpenAPI documents serialize as v3 method, and that will serialize to your text writer that's been passed in, and that's your response going out. And that's how to do an output formatter, and I wired it all up inside of a startup file, so you can see that I've inserted, using configuration, 2 output formatters, one for JSON and one for YAML. Yeah, pretty neat. I also use the configuration for OpenAPI options, which is really nice. Really like that option stuff, and a little bit of middleware, and that's pretty much how I've tied things up. I wanted to keep this module really light, so there's no references to OpenAPI anywhere in the codebase. It's just a self-described module that uses the API Explorer stuffers to provide information. So that's so far.
Cool. Have you read the article that explains how to reuse some of the output formatters from middlewares? From, what's his name? Keegan something? No. I'll try to find the article for you.
Yeah, I Googled it, and this was the method that I found that people have been using to use output formatters. Because you can't just... The output formatters are executed on the response of an action. Mm-hmm. So you have to have an action, and I don't have an action, so I have to create an action.
Okay, I'll try to find the article. Yeah, it's a recent article. I'll try to find it to see if it's doing the same thing. And then isn't there a helper to generate a nice documentation instead of the JSON document?
What do you mean?
HTML views, tables, descriptions, links.
What do you mean on here?
Yeah, instead of a JSON document, which it is, an HTML page with tables, links.
I don't know. This is just what the OpenAPI Microsoft thing does. Okay. That's what it produces. I don't know if there's... I think if you use Swagger, if you use the Swagger API, Swagger interface, and point it at this, okay, so I think that's what happens. If you use the Swagger UI and point it at this API, then the Swagger UI will generate you a web page that you can use to do the posting. What this is doing is describing to that system what to do.
Yeah, I think there is also server-side generation available in case.
Potentially, okay. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll check that.
Yeah, I mean, the OpenAPI stuff that's on that repo, you know, it's still in alpha or whatever, so I'm not expecting this to be,
that's cool.
Anytime soon. But
investigation.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's good. Nice, thank you.
No worries.
Sipke, any update on workflow to show, to demo?
No. Well, just the update that what I demoed the last week. So you can no longer generate URLs to invoke a workflow. Instead, you now rely on the HTTP request event activity. It's currently in a very simple form, but I intend to at some point, and that will be future PRs, where you can manage the generated URLs and maybe configure lifetimes and even permissions, but that's things that we would have to discuss first.
Okay, that's
but
good.
it's in essence, it's done.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What else? Nothing new on my side. Some thought though about recipes, because I saw Nick open an issue with the theme and the blog theme, and the issue also with this blog theme is that it's kind of a generic blog theme, but a generic blog recipe. So we removed the subtitles and all the things that were specific to this theme. Maybe we should put them back and not call it the blog theme, but making explicit that this is a blog coming with this theme, and it has specific properties for this theme and not just generic blogging. And then I thought that we should be able to support. So if we look at let's see, let me open, I will show you. If I look at the source.
So that issue was basically just kind of saying, I pulled a blog theme down and I couldn't do everything what I wanted to do with it.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Without having to modify code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my other thought about it is because I was thinking, how do you make things part of the module, like the types, the fields that are specific to this theme? Should it be part of the theme? Should it be externalized and then you can point to a theme? But I'm like, no, this is very specific to this theme. Maybe we need to be able to import another recipe from another common place, like maybe we have some common things that we want to reuse across the modules or across the themes or across the blog themes, and point to this thing, and I think we already have that. And then execute some custom logic like, and also add this field to this blog post because in this theme I have a subtitle, for instance, which I don't have in other blogs. So we could be able to have that. So be able to import other parts of recipes into a recipe. Then let's say you create your custom theme and you do some changes, and because you started from a recipe, you have some custom fields and you want to be able to add more things. So you could update the existing recipe, but then you have to run it again. Okay, and you don't want to run it again, you just want to update things. So some steps will be able to update themselves, but some others won't. So what I'm thinking is, we talked about it last year during the harvest, was to do the recipe migrations, so that recipes should be able to be selected on the setup by some mechanism, but we should also be able to run recipes automatically if they have some specific naming or in a specific folder for some, in a way to, whenever we have a recipe name, for instance, upgrade 1 or upgrade 2 or upgrade 3, we run them and we know which recipes or which pieces of the recipes we have run, and then make them automatic, like migrations. This way you can just create a new recipe file and it will be executed. So it's part of your project. You don't have to write a migration step with some code to update a feed, for instance. You can just write a piece of recipe and it will migrate. And the same way as we have migration, we could have a full create recipe and also pieces of recipes to update the module piece by piece, like we have the migration things. That will be much easier for people to be able even to code custom things in their modules at development time, or even to deploy the things. Because we see all the time people asking on the GitHub, hey, how do you add a setting for this custom field on this type by code? And I'm like, that's complex. Even documenting that is not easy. At the same time, we have so many examples in recipe. We could just say, oh, copy paste this node and put it in a file and done. So that would be better, I think. And maybe some migration will be moved into recipes because they are much easier to create, probably. Another alternative to that will be to have, like we moved the manifest files to a class like it's compile time and you have IntelliSense. Maybe we can have the same thing for recipes and have the object model that is exposed and materialized from the design document into classes. So you will have also the IntelliSense, and you will create a recipe in code, like we create a recipe in JSON file. That's another approach. They are not opposite, but that might be another way to do that if we want IntelliSense. Yeah, creating steps from code if we expose the nice pocos. But I don't know, just thoughts. If you have ideas, we can talk about it on a Gitter issue. At least being able to run multiple recipes would be super nice. Automatically, I mean, not from the UI, but if the recipe is there, I have to run it. It's part of the migration, and we record which recipes we have run or the number of the recipe, and then we can run the next one on the next run. That would be, I think, super useful. I know you agree.
Yep.
Why would not you? Makes things super easier. And then yes, the theme could import a common recipe for blogging if we want. We don't have to, and then add some steps. And as we update the module, create more recipe segments to run. I think about it. Don't worry. But but ASP.NET Core is super fast. I can tell you that. So we've made good improvements on the perf with my work, so that's good. You will see. There will be some announcement to explain the improvements, and that's good. Super fast. We will also get some benefits in Orchard. Yeah, there are many things to improve. Data access is faster. I'm working on startup time right now. What else? Yeah, lots of tips and tricks to make apps fast and measure that, and comparing also to other platforms. People think Node is super fast, but .NET Core is 5 times faster in every load. Working on Tech Empower also for the next benchmarks. Lots of things to do. Yes. Yeah, but we need taxonomies very, very soon. Maybe Sipke, when he's done with workflow, will start before me, like he did with Nick's work on workflow. He took it over and finished it. We'll see.
Well, you never know. But I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, crap. There's a lot of small things also I want to add when I see all these comments on Gitter and small issues we can fix, and nice things to make website development much easier. Also some tutorials I like to do, like the thing I explained last week with widgets, or how to make a theme and things like that. So many things to do. Not enough time. But it will come in time. No rush. Let's not rush anything. Good. And I know some people can already make nice websites. Okay, I've seen some prototypes of super nice websites, so that's great. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday.
Cheers, guys.